Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting Great British Road journey. This week I'm still in the arse end of England, also known as Cornwall. In the last episode we travelled from Launceston to Newquay, discovering that Cornwall was mostly a quarry. Perhaps today we'll find the legendary pasty that Cornwall is known for on a journey that'll take us from Falmouth to St Austell. As always, to help navigate our way around, we'll be using my 1923 Michelin guidebook, period correct maps, and we're not off to a good start because my guidebook suggests that maybe we'd like to visit Falmouth's world famous old curiosity shop, which sounds curious. Unfortunately, we're a little bit late because it's long since been replaced. It was a shop that opened in the late 1800s selling things, I don't know. But what of Falmouth itself? Well, with a population of over 13,000 in the days of my guidebook, it was certainly a busy place, and that was most likely because of Falmouth docks, which started to expand in the mid-1800s. A short distance from the docks is Pendennis Castle, a recommendation by my guidebook, so I thought we'd take a look. It seems to have been built under the orders of King Henry VIII in the mid-1500s, and this is interesting because throughout the series we've seen many examples of where King Henry VIII has ruined or demolished structures around the country. This seems to be the complete opposite of that. So why did he build it? Defence. At the time, we were worried that the French would invade. Falmouth and its surrounding waterways would have been vulnerable to an enemy invasion, so the castle was built to fight off against such attacks, and installed here was a series of artillery which, due to the circular design of the building, could fire in all directions if required. And speaking of directions, we'll be heading out of Falmouth via a route that will connect us up with the A39, which, looking at our old maps, has been replaced by a newer bypass taking you around the town of Penryn, which for us is not suitable, so we'll be following the route of what used to be the A39, which will take us through Penryn. Penryn was a small town with only around 3,500 residents, but despite this, in the days of my guidebook and for many years prior, it was an incredibly busy place because Penryn was one of the main sources of the country's granite supply. If you lived in Penryn and the surrounding areas, if you weren't digging out granite, you most likely would have been processing it or using it to construct stuff. There were several granite quarries in the area, but one such quarry, known as Carnsue Quarry, was set up in the early 1900s, and it's still open today, digging out over 500,000 tonnes of granite every year. A lot of it is used in road construction, but some of the granite has been used to construct several buildings of interest, one of which we'll take a look at a little later on. In the meantime, quarry! Interestingly, despite its ease of availability, they didn't use granite to construct the College Wood Viaduct, which is found a short distance from Penryn railway station. The viaduct that we see today isn't the original structure. The original viaduct was designed by Brunel and completed in 1863, and it was mostly made out of timber, which I thought was odd, but it turns out in those days it was quite common to make viaducts out of timber, and there were 50 timber viaducts built across Cornwall. The timber viaduct here in Penryn was the longest standing timber viaduct, outlasting all of the others before being finally replaced by the stone structure we see today in 1934. Although evidently they couldn't be bothered to remove the original stone piers, this would have been far too much effort, so they've been left in place, surviving to this day. Our next destination is the city of Truro, except it isn't, because we're taking a detour to what's called the Gwenup Mining District, and more specifically we're going to find the Ale and Cakes Mine. I like ale, I like cake, and I like mines. It could scarcely be better. Imagine my surprise, there is neither ale nor cake, but there is a mine. Mining began here in the early 1700s, but following several company mergers, mining would come to an end and the mines would sit abandoned for around 40 years. They would then be taken on by a new owner in 1820, who after only 2 years was raking in the profits. It's not clear as to whether it was planned or sheer luck that they'd stumbled across one of the world's largest supplies of copper, which they promptly set about extracting. The building we see today is the remains of a steam engine house, which most likely would have been used to lift the materials to the surface before they'd be transported to the nearby village of Devoren, where there was a port, and they'd be exported. Once you've finished exploring the mining industry, why not have a day out at the races at United Downs Raceway? Built on land that used to be part of the mine, it hosts various events including banger racing and stock car racing. They're hillbilly motorsports, but no doubt an awful lot of fun. The raceway started out as a karting circuit in 1960, but quickly progressed into bigger and better things, introducing stock car racing in 1969. Up next, the city of Truro, which is the most southerly city in the UK, and it's also the capital city of Cornwall, although interestingly, in the days of my guidebook, it was smaller than Falmouth, with around 4,000 fewer residents. My guidebook suggests maybe we'd like to take a look at Truro Cathedral. Which we will, because Truro Cathedral is quite interesting, being one of only 3 cathedrals in the country to feature 3 spires. It was built in the late 1800s, with its exterior being constructed out of granite. In this case, it came from Penryn and the several granite quarries in that area. Hopefully you'll remember this from earlier. Truro Cathedral is one of the several structures made out of this local stone. The interior of the cathedral is also constructed out of granite, but that was dug out near St Stephen and the Hidden Valley, which you may recall from last week's episode. That's about it for Truro. There's not much else going on, and indeed, my guidebook recommends a few other churches to look at, and that's your lot. However, as we make our way to St Austell via what was the A39 in the old days, now the A390, we're going to make a quick stop to look at what the churches may not like all that much. This is a bridge that's known as the Devil's Arch Bridge, and it's said to be one of the most haunted places in Cornwall, which is a load of shit. Still, it's a nice enough structure. It's built on what used to be the Pendennis estate, and it used to carry one of the estate's driveways over the road. It's not clear as to when it was built exactly, but it features on the oldest maps I can find. A short distance from the bridge and on the same estate is this, the Pendennis obelisk. They f***ing love an obelisk in Cornwall, and this one is 10 or so metres tall and made from, yep, you guessed it, granite. That's all we know. No one can confirm why or when it was built, but I think it was built to be a nice garden ornament for whoever owned the estate at the time. If not that, aliens. More granite can be found to the north of St Austell by way of a 15th century well house that was restored in 1922, 1 year before my guidebook's publication, but it no doubt featured in the 1922 edition. It's known as Menachudal Holywell, hence the well house, and it was built alongside a chapel of which there's no trace today. In modern times, it doesn't really do anything, but it does provide a nice place to go, so if you fancy a jolly little walk, give it a go. Our final destination for the day is the town of St Austell, by all accounts a fairly successful town, having had hundreds of years of quarry industry to keep the town going and to allow for its expansion from 3,500 people in the days of my guidebook to over 21,000 today. Another success story is the St Austell Brewery, formerly known as Walter Hicks. They set up shop in 1851, initially dealing with wines and spirits before moving into beer production 12 years later. Today they're still trading and employ nearly 2,000 people, and they definitely know how to make a tasty beverage. If nature's your thing, then what better way to enjoy it than underneath a huge plastic sheet? Found a short distance from St Austell, this is the Eden Project, a huge visitor attraction that was built on the site of an old clay pit. It opened in the year 2000, and the strange enclosures are called biomes. Within each biome is a simulated environment such as a rainforest where you'll find thousands of species of plants from all over the world growing within these simulated environments, the largest of which covers an area of 3.9 acres. In 2016, the Eden Project became home to the largest redwood forest in England, with 40 saplings being planted. These could eventually grow to be over 100 metres high, and I don't think they've really thought that through because the biomes are only 55 metres high. And there we are then, guys. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That'd be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John. You've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.